Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here with probably one of my most niche videos I have ever done. The date that this video is going up is October 16th, which marks my 3-year BookTube anniversary, which is kind of wild. Don't know how that happened. And so to kind of celebrate, I decided to do a very specific video that I'm really excited about, and again is just like so very niche, but also I think so on brand for me. So that's how I'm celebrating, is I'm doing a video I'm really excited about that maybe other people don't care about, but that's fine. So I am a little bit obsessed with Lucy Worsley and her series of historical like documentaries or like mini series that she does. I think they're done through BBC, but we sometimes get them broadcast in the US here through other channels, which I love. And today I'm doing an original book tag based on Lucy Worsley's shows and like her programs and everything. So here we go. I have 4 questions that are kind of based on like her general approach, and hopefully even if you haven't seen the show you can kind of get a feel for the kinds of things she does through my questions. And then I have 4 tag questions that are kind of specifically based on particular series or programs that she has done. Number 1, Lucy Worsley's shows are known for being equal parts fun and informative. What's a nonfiction book that taught you a lot and was also very engaging or fun to read? And I think this is a very appropriate book to include in this tag because as you'll see when we get to some of the other questions, Lucy Worsley actually did a show kind of on this topic. But I have The Lazy Historian's Guide to the Wives of Henry VIII by Gillian Hamilton, a concise conversational handbook on the 6 women who helped shape England's history. So this is really short, it definitely is concise, and I have mentioned this book a couple times before, but this was pretty much exactly what I was looking for, because I was starting to get very into Six the Musical, as many of us do, and that kind of like reignited or started even my interest in the 6 queens, the 6 wives of Henry VIII, and their history and their lives, rather than focusing on him. And I was looking for a short, quick, engaging nonfiction book that could kind of like give me a crash course in this, and that is exactly what this book did. It's written in a really funny and really entertaining way, while also being really well researched and organized. I think the author is also very clear about like historical record and which things we've kind of had to make conjectures about and which things we know for sure, just something I always appreciate in nonfiction. And even though this is a very entertaining and funny book, I think the author also did a really great job of not letting that cheapen some of the really sad things that happen to these women, because I think that's a really hard balance to do, is when you're writing something or creating a kind of media that is funny or entertaining or like tongue-in-cheek and it involves serious topics. I think it's really difficult to balance those things, but I think she did a really great job with that. There is definitely a sense of compassion and sympathy, even though this is a nonfiction book. I mentioned, I think when I first reviewed this, that might annoy some people. Some readers might feel like she kind of puts herself into the story a little too much, but I actually really liked it, and I don't think it was done too much for this book. So I really enjoyed this, and I think this would be a really great kind of starter nonfiction book because it is written in such an engaging way. And again, very short. Number 2, the shows always include a few segments where Lucy acts in costume as some of the historical or literary figures. A queen, a servant, a character in the novel, etc. Share one of your favorite plays or a book featuring theater in some way. And I have another recent read that again you probably haven't seen because my wrap-up isn't up yet, but that is Antigona Gonzalez by Sarah Uribe, translated by John Plecker. And this is a retelling of Antigone by Sophocles, which is a very famous ancient Greek tragedy and a play that I really love. And it takes that framework and tells a story about missing and murdered people in Mexico. And I just think this was such an incredibly powerful piece. This is another very short one. It's only about 200 pages, and actually in a way it's actually half of that, because every page you have the Spanish and the English translation right next to that. And this is just such an effective and well-written piece, really powerful and really emotional. And something else I think is really interesting is the afterword kind of gives you some information that I think in most cases would be at the beginning of a work. And initially I kind of wished that that information had been at the beginning so that it kind of was more prepared, but I actually think it was really effective the way she did it, because it kind of forces you to draw your own conclusions and to try and figure out where words are coming from, or if this is a source or if this is fiction. And like it makes you, I think, more open to the story, and it also makes you more engaged with the story and kind of treat it differently. And again, I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but such a powerful and effective play or piece, or I don't even know how you would describe this piece of media, but I thought it was fantastic. Number 3, it's hard to deny Lucy Worsley's passion for what she does. She's clearly doing her dream job and her enthusiasm is irresistible. Pick 2 books with a character who is passionate about something, like a hobby or area of study. One interest you share and one you don't, but the book was able to make you understand why the character loves it so much. For the interest that I share, I have I Love You So Mochi by Sarah Kuhn. This is a book about a main character who is Japanese American, and she ends up going to Japan for the first time to stay with her grandparents for spring break. And while she's there, she really starts to fall in love with Japan as a country. She meets a boy there. She starts to get to know her grandparents better because I don't think she's ever met them, or it's been a very long time since she has. And this is just such a lovely story. The main character, Kimi, she's really passionate about fashion and like fashion design and outfits, and how design helps you express yourself, and also the way it can influence memories. And the way we see Kimi start to realize that throughout the book, and the way that that is treated as something that is just as valuable as other hobbies or other abilities, was just really, really cool. I also am interested in fashion. I took a few classes, and like for a while I was kind of considering like going into some aspect of design or related to the fashion industry. So I'm definitely not like trained or an expert in it or anything, but it was something I really loved, and still something that I find very interesting. And seeing Kimi realize that this is worthwhile, and also hearing the way that she connects memories and important things or people in her life to clothing, and the way that she is so moved by the power of design and the way that it can make you feel like your best self. I just really, really love the way this book did that, especially for an industry or a passion or a skill set that is still, I think, not considered very important, or sometimes it's not even recognized as something that does take a lot of skill. So I just really, really loved that in this book. And then for the interests that I do not share, I have the Track series by Jason Reynolds. This is Patina, the book I read most recently in the series, and it's a middle grade series about a track team. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I am not a big fan of running. I always really loved soccer, but I kind of felt separate to me because it wasn't just running. You were like playing a game, and running was helping you accomplish that game. But running by itself, I've never been a fan of. And this series made me understand why these kids do. It's funny because some books I've read about running that kind of give me a similar like, oh, I understand why you like this. They're really focused on like the emotional dimension to running, and kind of the symbolic reasons that people might connect to it, and I think those are really good as well. But this series is kind of goes the other direction, because especially in this one, Patina, like, she actually says to somebody at one point, like, it's not that deep, I just like running. And I think that's true and that's valid, but you also see Patina in this book starts to realize as well that even though there is that surface level enjoyment, she starts to realize that there are other more personal reasons why she connects to running, or why she wants to run. And I think that this book did a really great job with that. Like, it didn't discount what she said before about like, it's not that deep, I just like running. That's true. And then she realized something that is also true is that there are reasons she does enjoy running and feel connected to it. So hopefully that distinction made sense, but really loving the series. Number 4. Lucy Worsley's commentary always skillfully balances history and conscience. She keeps true to the original material while also providing necessary context and humanity. What's an old book, however you define this, that surprised you with how modern and forward-thinking its ideas are? And for that one, I have Persuasion by Jane Austen. Jane Austen excels at social commentary in general, but one of the things that we talked about for this book as part of our Austen Anonymous book club is that this book is almost more overtly feminist than Pride and Prejudice, which is the one that I kind of tend to think of as being the most subversive. I feel like in this book, like, the subtext becomes text. There's that short quote that I read before where Anne Elliot, the main character, is talking to a man who, like, they're kind of having a friendly argument about if men or women tend to stay true to their love longer, and the man has said that men are more likely to do that. And he says something like, books always say that women are less constant than men, but you're probably going to say that men always write those books, so I won't bring those up. And Anne Elliot responds with, perhaps I shall. Yes, yes, if you please, no reference to examples in books. Men have had every advantage of us in telling their own story. Education has been theirs in so much higher a degree. The pen has been in their hands. I will not allow books to prove anything. And I just think that's such a powerful scene, and even the way that it's worded, the pen has been in their hands, the idea of telling your own story, those are ideas that we use those same words to describe today. And I just think that's really amazing that this book that's a few hundred years old, like, Jane Austen was already aware of that. And I also think it's a great example of how there have always been people from marginalized groups who realized that they were being mistreated. It's not like they just suddenly woke up one day and was like, you know what? We're not being treated like people. Like, just because the feminist movement or whatever like officially started, because I think there's a tendency to treat historical developments as like, oh, then everybody woke up and realized that civil rights were a thing, and that's not true. There's obviously a really long history of people looking around them and realizing that something is wrong, and I think that's another cool thing that this book does. So now into the second half of the tag, which are about specific programs Lucy Worsley has done. Number 5 is a very British romance. Books with any kind of romantic element are often incorrectly dismissed as superficial. Share a book that had more depth than you expected. And I'm going to go with the Magical Venice series by Holly Webb. I have read the first 2 books, and this is the second one, The Mermaid Sister. So far, this is a series that is really fun and magical in a lot of ways, and then also has these really subtle undertones of heavy topics that it's dealing with. For one thing, this is a middle grade series, and these characters are really young, and I think the author does a really great job of writing them as believable young characters while also making it clear that they shouldn't have these kinds of responsibilities. It's wrong that kids have to worry about these kinds of things, but because of the time period this is loosely inspired by, and because of their positions that they have, like, these young kids or teenagers or preteens are having to worry about things and make these decisions that they shouldn't have to. And like, this book deals with neglectful or emotionally abusive family relationships. Our main character, Mia, she actually kind of realizes during this book that that's what was going on, and that that her mother maybe never loved her, and it's really, really hard to read about this young girl like acknowledging that and realizing, like, oh, I guess she just wanted to control me and she didn't actually care about what happened to me, which makes this book sound really dark. I promise there are other, like, much lighter things that happen in this book as well, but this series is definitely surprising me with how heavy some of its material is, in addition to those fun elements. Number 6, Six Wives with Lucy Worsley. This is the one that's about the wives of Henry VIII that I mentioned earlier. Though you might have a favorite, each of these women is given the sympathy she deserves. Share a book that had multiple main characters you loved. And for this one, I have one of my favorite books that I have talked about a few times before, and that is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This book has multiple points of view and multiple main characters, and they're kind of added slowly throughout the book. I know some people didn't like how many narrators there were, or they didn't like that the perspectives weren't labeled at the beginning of each chapter, but I feel like Naomi Novik did such a brilliant job of, like, kind of giving you context for who the main character was, that within the first sentence or two I always knew who was talking, so I thought it was done really well. And I just love all of these main characters so much. Like, this is just a book about brilliant, determined, competent, compassionate women just doing the best they can and, like, making decisions in order to protect the people they care about and to keep their world safe. And I just love it. I think arguably our 3 main characters, even though there are other perspectives, are Wanda, Miriam, and Irina, and I just love all of them. I think I've mentioned before how I honestly can't make up my mind about which of those 3 is my favorite, because they're just all so wonderful and so complex, and I love them, and I love this book. Number 7, Suffragettes with Lucy Worsley. Sources about the women's suffrage movement have often been limited in scope. Recommend a book that covered a famous era, event, etc. from a different perspective. And I actually did a video pretty recently on this book, and this is one of the things I mentioned, but that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is a Gothic horror novel that is set in 1950s Mexico, and one of the things that I think is so cool about Silvia Moreno Garcia and the books that she writes is that she takes these very iconic eras or time periods and she tells stories that we don't see a lot. Like, the 50s is obviously a very well-known and kind of iconic decade, but we don't get a lot of Latin American stories about that or set during that era, and this is a brilliant one. It also deals a lot with colonialism and the history of colonialism in Mexico, which again is not something we see a ton of in fiction, I feel like, or at least not colonization and the legacy of that colonization like within the last couple of centuries. But there are a lot of things I love about this book. Again, I just did a video on it, so I won't go on too much, but yeah, definitely a fantastic book. And finally, number 8, and the last question, is Lucy Worsley's Royal Myths and Secrets. Several of the episodes have centered on showing how famously ineffectual or silly women, such as Queen Anne or Marie Antoinette, were in fact much more intelligent and capable than history gives them credit for. Name one of your favorite competent female characters. And I'm going with Mulan from The Magnolia Sword, A Ballad of Mulan by Sherry Thomas. This is another book I did a video on, which was a full spoiler-free review, so I will link that down below as well. But I love this book. I love Mulan as a character, and she is definitely extremely competent. She's a brilliant fighter, and she's also very strategic. And even though there definitely are obstacles that she faces along the way, like, she kind of has to realize that being really good at swordsmanship in a particular context is not the same as being thrown into battle and being able to handle that or being able to react very quickly to that. So we definitely see her, like, grow and develop her abilities and kind of, like, get better at utilizing them in different contexts. So it's not, like, completely smooth sailing, but she is just so good at what she does. She has been training at this for so long. She's a really, really hard worker, and even though we see those, like, roadblocks of having to use her abilities in a different setting, she's still absolutely a really competent, intelligent, hardworking character, and I love that. Also, the love interest is, like, one of those who he's just, like, so in awe of his badass girlfriend, and I really love that. So yeah, just I love this book, and Mulan is one of the reasons why. Okay everybody, so that was my Lucy Worsley original book tag. Like I said at the beginning, this is very, very niche. I don't know how many of you guys have seen that show or know who Lucy Worsley is, but I hope that this has maybe inspired you to look into some of her shows if you can get a hold of them. Maybe there's a historical topic that she covers that you're interested in. Maybe I piqued your interest about some of them. I hope so. I just think she is so cool, and I really, really love that her shows show that you don't have to be bored by nonfiction in order to learn something, because that was kind of a stereotype that I believed for a while, and one of the reasons I stayed away from nonfiction for a long time is I thought it was like just school textbooks, or that if I pursued things that I was interested in or excited about learning about, then I like wasn't really reading nonfiction, or like it wasn't like smart nonfiction if I was interested in it, which is ridiculous, but that's kind of, I think, the mindset that we sometimes have about nonfiction. So I really love that Lucy Worsley's work is combating that. And now I'm going to tag a bunch of people. So generally when I create tags, I try to make the questions applicable to lots of different kinds of books or genres, or if it is specific, I want to give like an alternative version if you don't read that kind of book. But because I wanted to keep these questions pretty true to the theme of this tag, I kind of had to make them more specific than usual. So hopefully that's not a problem. If I tag you and you're not really into this idea, or like you just would rather not do the tag, that's fine, as Kazan from Always Doing says, the love is in the tag. So here are the people I'm going to tag who I think might be interested in doing this maybe. I tag Hannah from Lynn Hermione, Julia from Shakespeare and Such, Katie at A Sea of Tomes, Mary Margaret at MM's Musings, Mary at Mary Among Stories, Kazan at Always Doing, Annalisa at Annalisa Eli, Olivia Savannah at Olivia's Catastrophe, Hannah at Snow White Reader, Claudia at Spencer's Library, Amanda at The Curly Reader, Yvette from Book Cave, Justin at Triumphal Reads, Kira at The Kira the Scrivener, and Yara from Array of Reading. I'm also going to tag Rocky from Blonde with the Book, even though Rocky, I don't think you read a ton of historical fiction. I feel like that's not a genre you tend to enjoy. So if you would rather not do this tag, feel free to ignore this. We were talking the other day about how like early in our BookTube careers we like discovered each other's channel. So even though her BookTube anniversary is not that close to mine, I feel like it is. So Rocky, I feel like I had to tag you in this tag. So again, feel free to ignore it. Okay, you guys, so thank you so much for watching this. Thank you guys for supporting me for 3 years on BookTube. Kind of can't believe it's been that long because I still feel like a newer booktuber, which is silly when I say it out loud. But yeah, thank you for helping to make these years wonderful. I am really excited to continue. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!